They called it Death Cave. Its waters seemed benign, clear, calm, crystal blue. But beneath that mirror lies a silent trap. On October 9, 1972, 4 divers, teenagers, and 1 veteran descended into its inviting mouth. They left without safety lines, believing they'd only explore briefly. Moments later, the cave swallowed their path in mud. The light died, and all went black. 3 of them never escaped. Only 1 would claw his way back into daylight. What happened in those final minutes inside Death Cave is a warning we can't afford to ignore. Death Cave lies hidden in Utah, near the town of Vernal, a place known more for its desert cliffs and red rock mesas than for underground waters. From the surface, it is unremarkable. A pool tucked into the earth, its entrance partially concealed by brush and rock. But locals whispered about it for decades. The cave had a reputation, alluring to thrill seekers, but unforgiving to the careless. Inside, the cave stretches as a flooded labyrinth of narrow passages and chambers, with silt that stirs at the slightest touch, turning crystal water into an impenetrable fog. In the 1970s, cave diving was poorly understood in the region. Few divers carried specialized training, and safety protocols like permanent guidelines or redundant lighting were rarely considered. For those who entered, it was easy to underestimate the risks. To the young men who approached it that day, Death Cave looked like a hidden adventure waiting to be claimed. On October 9, 1972, 4 divers arrived at Death Cave. Among them were 3 teenagers, eager for adventure, and a more experienced diver who had agreed to accompany them. Their plan was casual, a short dive, just enough to glimpse the cavern and return. They brought basic scuba gear, single tanks, simple lights, but no guideline, no redundant air, no detailed plan. At the time, such omissions were common. Few fully understood just how disorienting a submerged cavern could be. At first, the descent seemed harmless. They slipped beneath the surface into the first chamber, beams of light cutting through the clear water. The cave revealed its eerie beauty, smooth limestone walls, pockets of air above, and dark tunnels that invited them deeper. Excitement pushed them forward, but with every kick of their fins, silt lifted from the floor. What had been clear moments earlier began to cloud. The further they went, the more the light from the entrance faded. Soon, they had ventured into a maze of passages where even the veteran diver felt uncertainty creep in. The group pressed forward, unaware of how quickly visibility could collapse. Their torches, weak by modern standards, cast narrow cones that barely held back the dark. One careless movement was all it took. The floor erupted in a storm of silt, filling the water with a brown haze that swallowed everything. The shimmering outline of the entrance was gone. Within minutes, what had seemed like a simple dive turned into a trap. Disoriented and without a line to follow, the divers were surrounded by darkness, their sense of direction erased. The name Death Cave, once just a local warning, was about to prove horribly real. The blackout hit like a wall. One moment the divers could see the faint outlines of stone. The next, they were blind in a swirling storm of silt. Panic spread quickly. Each tried to find the way back, but without a guideline their hands met only rock and mud. The youngest diver's breathing grew ragged. Every frantic inhale drained his tank faster, bubbles roaring against the ceiling. Another diver tried to steady him, but fear had already taken hold. In the chaos, one torch flickered out, leaving the group in even deeper darkness. The veteran diver realized the danger. Air was running low, and without direction, they would all be lost. He fought to keep calm, running his hand along the walls, searching for any path upward. Then, by sheer chance, He found a pocket of clearer water leading toward the entrance. With a desperate surge, he kicked free, breaking the surface and gasping into daylight. Behind him, silence. The three teenagers never emerged. Their tanks ran empty in the darkness, regulators slipping from their mouths. One by one, they succumbed, their final minutes spent in confusion and terror, just meters from safety. Death Cave had lived up to its name, leaving only one survivor to tell the story. The tragedy at Death Cave shook the small Utah community. News of 3 young lives lost spread quickly, and locals who had once dismissed the cave as a harmless swimming hole now saw it for what it was, a hidden death trap. Parents forbade their children from going near it, and whispers of curses and bad luck began to cling to the place. For divers, the lesson was sobering. The absence of safety lines, redundant gear, and proper training had turned a simple exploration into disaster. Instructors and organizations began citing the Death Cave incident as a grim reminder of how quickly mistakes could compound underwater. Authorities soon restricted access, posting warnings and fencing off the site to keep others out. Still, the cave's reputation lingered, a dark attraction to thrill seekers who saw danger as a challenge. But for the families, it was no myth. Death Cave had taken their beloved ones, and no beauty beneath the surface could ever outweigh the cost. The entrance to Cenote Calima shimmered under the Mexican sun, its turquoise surface calm and inviting. To the casual eye, it was paradise, but to cave divers, it marked the threshold of Sac Actun, one of the most intricate and unforgiving underwater labyrinths on Earth. On February 11, 2013, Bernard Reeves, a skilled Canadian diver, slipped beneath those waters. Hours later, he would not return. In the silent dark of the cave, a chain of small missteps became fatal, adding his name to the long ledger of divers lost in Mexico's deadly passages. Cenote Calima lies just outside Tulum, a town on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, where the jungle hides gateways into a vast subterranean world. To the uninitiated, cenotes are tranquil pools of turquoise water, ringed by limestone walls and overhanging foliage. To divers, however, they are portals into one of the most extensive underwater cave systems ever discovered, the Sac Actun system, stretching for hundreds of kilometers beneath the Earth. Sac Actun is both a marvel and a menace. Its passages connect cenotes in an intricate web carved by water over millennia. Some tunnels open into vast chambers where beams of sunlight pierce the water. Others collapse into tight restrictions, barely wide enough for a diver to pass. The deeper one ventures, the less predictable it becomes. Even the most seasoned explorers describe Sac Actun as unforgiving, a cave where disorientation can strike in seconds and visibility can vanish with a careless kick of the fin. By 2013, cenote diving had become a draw for thrill seekers and professionals alike. Tulum's cenotes were famous among divers, attracting explorers from around the world. Local guides and training centers stressed the dangers, pointing to the long list of fatalities that had occurred in the region. Safety protocols were clear. Never dive without proper training, always maintain a continuous guideline, and never exceed one's limits. Yet the allure of the underground world was powerful. Divers came seeking beauty and challenge, some finding both, others never returning. Cenote Calima, though modest in appearance, held a reputation for danger. It offered no easy passages, only restrictions that required precision and nerves of steel. Visibility could shift from crystal clarity to total blindness in moments. Those who entered often spoke of the psychological weight of the place, a sense that the cave tested every decision without mercy. For Bernard Reeves, it was another opportunity to explore, to push deeper into a system he admired. For the families who would later hear his story, it became a reminder that Sac Actun gives nothing freely. Beneath its beauty lies an environment where mistakes are final, and where even the most experienced divers are not immune. On the morning of February 11, 2013, Bernard Reeves prepared his gear at the edge of Cenote Calima. The air was warm, the jungle alive with insects and birds, the water below calm and glassy. To anyone passing by, it might have seemed like a routine dive, just another visitor descending into one of Mexico's famed cenotes. But to those who knew the cave system, there was nothing routine about Calimba. Reeves approached his preparation with the care of experience. His twin tanks were checked and rechecked, regulators purged, reels secured. He knew the rules, knew the risks, and carried the discipline of a diver who respected both. Friends later recalled that he was calm, even cheerful, as he reviewed his equipment. He had dived Calimba before and felt comfortable with its challenges. The cenote itself offered little hint of the peril it held. At the surface, the water sparkled with clarity, revealing the first meters of limestone walls below. But beyond that shallow entrance stretched darkness. The passages waiting for Reeves were tight and twisting, demanding precision in movement and an unshakable sense of orientation. Local divers often remarked on Calimba's deceptive nature. It lacked the grandeur of some nearby cenotes, no cathedral-like chambers or shafts of sunlight streaming deep underground. Instead, it was narrow, claustrophobic, and psychologically draining. The deeper one traveled, the more it pressed against nerves, a test of focus and composure. Reeves understood these challenges, but caves are not static environments. Currents shift, silt settles differently, and visibility can collapse in an instant. Even preparation and experience cannot account for every variable. As Reeves secured his mask and gave a final check of his gear, the water around him looked calm, almost inviting. He descended slowly, light cutting into the darkness, his guidelines secured behind him. Above, the cenote remained still. Below, Sac Actun prepared to test him in ways no diver could fully anticipate. At first, Bernard Reeves's descent into Cenote Calima unfolded exactly as he intended. The opening chamber was familiar, a place where divers often pause to adjust buoyancy and orient themselves before moving into the darker passages beyond. His primary reel stretched behind him, clipped to rock as a lifeline leading back to the surface. His lights cut sharp beams into the clear water, illuminating walls of pale limestone shaped by centuries of underground rivers. The cave at Calimba is known for its immediacy. Unlike some cenotes that open gradually into large, cathedral-like caverns, Calimba offers little space for adjustment. Its passages quickly narrow, forcing divers to maneuver carefully. Reeves pressed forward, flattening himself at times to fit through restrictions, shifting his tanks against the walls to avoid snagging. For a diver of his training, these movements were practiced, but they carried weight nonetheless. Each passage left little room for error. Minutes into the dive, the beauty of Sac Actun revealed itself. Stalactites hung like jagged teeth from the ceiling, and the walls shimmered as beams of light struck mineral deposits. In the stillness of the cave, it was easy to forget the peril, to be carried instead by awe, but beauty in places like Calimba is fragile. With the faintest touch of a fin, silt stirred from the floor and drifted upward. As Reeves advanced deeper, the tunnel constricted. Visibility, once crisp, began to cloud. A small miscalculation, perhaps a misplaced kick, or the brush of gear against the bottom, released a sheet of silt that hovered like smoke in the water. Within moments, the world around him blurred. Then, in a rush, clarity gave way to darkness. Reeves was in the midst of a full silt-out. In a cave, a silt-out is every diver's nightmare. What had been an environment of light and landmarks became an endless void where orientation depended entirely on touch. Reeves gripped his guideline, his gloved fingers tracing its nylon edge with deliberate care. Panic was not in his nature, but the human body responds to stress instinctively. His breathing grew faster, regulator hissing with each intake, bubbles ricocheting against the ceiling. Every accelerated breath meant a quicker drain on his limited supply of air. The passages tightened, offering no reprieve. Reeves slowed, cautious not to lose his connection to the line. But the labyrinth of Sac Actun leaves no margin for hesitation. Somewhere in the shifting water and narrowing tunnels, he lost his orientation. Reports later suggested that he may have attempted to reposition his reel, or that he misjudged his path in the disorienting haze. Whatever the cause, Reeves became separated from the main line, his hands searching through darkness for the cord that would guide him home. The pressure of the cave was no longer just physical. It pressed into the mind. With his tanks dropping toward reserve, every exhale carried the weight of finality. Divers who later analyzed the tragedy noted that Reeves did everything he could to regain control. But in the blind silence of Sac Actun, even discipline and training can fail. When his air finally ran low, there was no dramatic collapse, no frantic struggle. His body slowed, movement stilled, and in the same silence that had greeted him on entry, Bernard Reeves succumbed. Alone in the dark, he became one more diver claimed by the cave. Above the surface, the water of Calimba remained calm, betraying nothing. The jungle echoed with birdsong, unaware that beneath its roots, a life had ended in the most unforgiving of environments. When Reeves failed to surface at the expected time, concern spread quickly. Divers in the area knew the unforgiving nature of Calimba, and every minute past schedule deepened the alarm. By late afternoon, the cenote had transformed from a site of exploration into the center of a full-scale recovery effort. Local authorities were contacted, and word reached the specialized cave diving community around Tulum. These were not ordinary rescuers, but divers trained for the unique dangers of Mexico's underwater labyrinths. They arrived with reels of line, redundant tanks, and high-powered lights, prepared not for rescue, but for the grim work of retrieval. By then, those who understood the realities of Sac Actun knew the chances of survival were gone. The recovery team descended cautiously into Calimba's entrance. Visibility was poor, the earlier disturbance still clouding the tunnels with silt. Each diver moved slowly, one hand locked on the guideline, the other extending forward into the void. The cave demanded patience. A careless movement could replicate the same conditions that had trapped Reeves. Deeper into the system, the signs of his struggle appeared. A scuffed wall here, a shifted pile of silt there. At last, their lights fell upon the still outline of Reeves. He was suspended in the water, regulator still in his mouth, gear intact but motionless. His hand, outstretched, seemed frozen mid-search, as if he had been reaching for the line he never found. Recovery in such conditions was no simple task. The body had to be carefully secured and guided back through the same tight restrictions Reeves had passed on his way in. Every turn of the passage threatened to snag equipment. Every exhale added to the tension. Slowly, painstakingly, the team retraced their path, carrying with them the weight of both their task and their grief. Hours later, as dusk settled over the jungle, the divers surfaced with Reeves's body. On the shoreline, silence gripped those who waited. Some wept quietly. Others stood rigid, their eyes fixed on the cenote as though willing the scene to change. But the reality was final. Bernard Reeves's last dive had ended far below, in the darkness of Sac Actun. For the recovery team, the mission was professional, but it was also deeply personal. They were cave divers themselves, men and women who knew the same risks, who had swum the same passages. The death of Bernard Reeves sent ripples through both the local community in Tulum and the broader diving world. To his family and friends, the loss was deeply personal. He was remembered as a man of quiet passion, someone who respected the caves he explored and never treated them lightly. For fellow divers, his passing was a sobering reminder that even skill and preparation cannot erase the risks of Sac Actun. News of the tragedy circulated quickly, appearing in local papers and international diving forums. Some divers who had visited Calimba before admitted they had underestimated its hazards, lulled by the cenote's small surface pool into thinking it was less dangerous than larger systems nearby. The cave did not need grand chambers to be deadly. Its restrictions and silt alone made it one of the most challenging entry points in the entire system. Cave diving organizations later referenced Reeves's case in discussions of safety. His death was not attributed to reckless behavior, but rather to the small, compounding errors that cave divers are taught to fear. A cloud of silt, a moment of disorientation, a separation from the line. The analysis reinforced the necessity of redundancy, discipline, and respect for limits, lessons that instructors echoed in training sessions long after. Among local divers, Calimba gained a reputation not just as a difficult site, but as a reminder of humility. Some avoided it altogether, unwilling to risk what had claimed so many before. Others approached it with renewed caution, aware that even experience offered no guarantees. For those closest to Reeves, the cenote became a place of memory rather than exploration. His story was retold not as a warning alone, but as a tribute, a recognition of his skill, his love for the underwater world, and the enduring truth that in caves like Sac Actun, nature holds the final authority. Cenote Calima rests quietly once more, its surface ringed by jungle and still as glass. To a passerby, it is nothing more than a small pool in the Yucatan. But for those who know its story, the water carries weight. Beneath the calm lies a maze where one diver entered in search of discovery and never returned. What happened to Bernard Reeves was not spectacle, but silence, the kind of ending that defines cave diving's reality. Standing at the edge today, one might hear only the wind through the trees and the faint stir of insects. Yet the cenote holds memory. It reminds us that beauty and danger often share the same space, and that in caves like Sac Actun, survival belongs not to the bold, but to the cautious. Reeves's story lingers there, another voice in the silence, reminding divers that nature gives no second chances.